Okay, let's start. Hello everyone. This is my great honor to do the software design documentation review and make this presentation for our group, Postgraduate Group 6. In this review, I have two parts to illustrate. One part is the organization and the completeness part. The other part is software design part. Let's first look at the first part, organization and completeness part. As for the explanatory text, we don't have enough illustration for database model diagram, which is figure 2. For other diagrams, we have significant descriptions for them. Then, in terms of design decisions, we separate the design decisions mainly into two sections, including system architecture and components design and the user interface design. The goal of each design section is clear and achievable, which makes our design decisions explicitly and motivated. However, we miss the evaluation of the software architecture, which should be added in the final documentation. Now let's focus on the software design part. In this part, the first section is the relationship between the architecture and the requirements. The software architecture we chosen is server-client architecture. The software architecture is guided by our software requirements, especially guided by user requirements, which includes a GUI and the operation control system. However, we didn't show the relationship clearly in the document. This is not good. So we should add this part in the final version. As for the necessary resources, we have a resource estimates section to illustrate the necessary resources needed to perform software design activities. We didn't estimate necessary staff, but the necessary staff is just the one who operates the GUI, so we don't need to write it into our SDD document. Then, in terms of the design methodology of the software, we actually identify the software structure in a modular way instead of documented methodology, because the modular way is more suitable for the development of software functional modules. Because of the modular identified methodology, the entities, inputs, and outputs designed in the system are all from other modules, which means all of them are derived from the software structure. Unfortunately, we missed the logical data model for the data flow. We will add this part as a flowchart to show the system's data flow in the final version. In the system architecture section, we have mainly described the software and the database structures, but we missed the hardware and the data communication structures, which are needed to be added in the final version. Then, the physical data model. Actually, we based on this physical data model in our SDD document is based on the requirements which is not as good as a data model based on the logical data model. I think we will modify it in the final version. As for the integrity of the architecture, our architecture is almost complete, but some specific implementation details are not included, such as the communication protocol between the server and the client, and the color value scope, each object represented, which will be added after finishing the code writing. However, the software architecture already covered all functional requirements at present. In our SDD document, we have provided all the relevant architectures reviews, but we didn't mention alternative architectures in the document, which should be added in the final version. As for the non-functional requirements, we haven't considered them in the SDD document, but we will consider it and deal with them in the final version. Also, we missed the flexibility of the architecture. We didn't mention the likely changes and the relevant changes scenarios in the SDD. We also should add them in the final version. Since we documented the input, output, and the interface of each entities clearly in the SDD document, we will use and we already begin to use these entities as the basis for our system models, procedures, and objects. However, as I said previously, we didn't manage and control the change of system design baseline because we didn't consider the change of requirements. It is a very important part, and we will add this content in the final version of our SDD document. Finally, as for the review of system design activities, we didn't mention it in the SDD document, but the code manager and the project manager will review them at least once during each sprint. This is the end of the presentation. Thank you for your attention. Bye.